Welcome to today's video. I just wanted to give a quick disclaimer before the video starts. This is a little bit different than my normal cycling content, so if you're only here for the cycling stuff, you may want to skip this video. However, I do eventually get around to telling you guys how I actually got into cycling, so otherwise feel free to skip it, but if you want to hear my weight loss story, just sit back, relax, and enjoy. I don't think that my childhood was really that different than most, and definitely of my relatives that I spent a lot of time with growing up. I come from the generation where we didn't have computers or internet at home in my childhood, but we did have Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64, and we definitely did a lot of gaming growing up. But I feel like I remember spending a lot of time playing outside. We swam every single day. In the summer, there was always someone with swimming pools, and we went skating. We skated for hours and hours on the weekend, but I was never part of any sports teams growing up. My parents weren't really into sports, and they never pushed me to be on any teams. We did spend a lot of time eating Happy Meals and collecting the toys that came with those. My mom was never a really good cook, and she also said that I was a picky eater, so I don't ever remember eating any vegetables either. I don't think that I had very well balanced meals for the most part. I remember always being overweight pretty much my entire life. And as I got older, I just continued to gain weight. I always felt ashamed of my weight growing up. Once I got to middle school, we finally got a computer in the house with dial-up internet, and that literally changed my life. In the summertime when school was out, I would just spend hours and hours and hours on the computer. All of the outdoor activity just went out the window at that point, but I definitely don't regret it since that's what I do for a career. But when I became a freshman in high school, I worked a full-time job, and I decided to use my money to actually pay a nutritionist to kind of help me out. And it was a really weird situation where they focused on weight loss, and so they gave me this powder to take before I ate, and it was supposed to help curb my appetite. But they showed me this little routine to do in the gym that really helped me in the future too. It was basically just hitting like the weight machines and then walking on the treadmill for 10 minutes. I did this for a couple of months, and when I started, I already weighed about 190 pounds. And I'm 5'2", so I'm not a very tall person. So 190 pounds is already pretty overweight. But I quickly lost 20 pounds after a couple of months. I didn't drive at this time, and so some conditions had changed, and my mom couldn't take me to the gym anymore. And just slowly over time, I ended up gaining that weight back. But it was really cool to lose that weight and see the progress, because that was really the first time in my life that I had really tried to lose weight. But the problem is that I wasn't really doing it for the right reasons at the time. I was just kind of doing it because I felt like I needed to, but I wasn't really 100% in. A year after graduating high school, I actually got a job on the other side of town, and it was working in the mall area. And this opened up these fast food restaurants that I didn't normally eat at. And I was just going wild. I was eating out, like eating 1,200 calorie meals for lunch on a regular basis on top of everything else that I was eating. Ultimately, this led me to gain probably another 30 or 40 pounds. You don't really weigh yourself a lot when you're not trying to lose weight, so I really had no idea what was going on. I kind of just had that moment where I realized something was wrong with me. Essentially, I had had dinner one night, and just kind of probably a normal dinner, just like a frozen meal or something like that. And I remember like an hour or two had passed, and I remember thinking that I was hungry again. So I went in the kitchen, I made myself a sandwich, and I ate that sandwich. And then I immediately found myself back in the kitchen looking at the fridge, thinking I was gonna make another sandwich. And it was in that moment that it just came over me. And I thought to myself, why am I like this? This is not normal. I should not be hungry after having a second dinner after my first dinner. And it was just like, it was like an instant breakdown. And I'd never questioned myself like that before. And so I went back to my computer, and I had been seeing these advertisements on TV for weight loss pills. It was around that time of the year. And I actually went to the website of one of those pills. And the reason why that one intrigued me is that it was talking about revving up your metabolism. And I honestly didn't know anything about that stuff back then. I didn't know anything about calorie counting, macros. I didn't even know what your metabolism really was. On this website, they had a ton of information about what your metabolism actually was. And so I read that and I was like, yes, okay, I get it. And so this kind of started to fuel my learning process behind, triggering the weight loss. And I started off very basic at this time. I knew that I needed to exercise and I needed to watch what I was eating, but I wasn't like ready to just dive into the deep end. I was really too embarrassed to go to the gym at that point. So I started off really basic, and I had an Xbox and I got a game called DDR, Dance Dance Revolution, and I bought the little dance pad, and my goal was to try to play this for 30 minutes about every other day and just burn some calories through that game. And then I just kind of started to be more conscious about what I was eating. I wasn't eating healthy at this point, but I was trying not to eat a bunch of extra stuff. And I did this for a couple of months, and when I started, I weighed in at almost 240 pounds. So 240 pounds at 5'2", pretty overweight. I did this for a couple months and I saw a little bit of progress, not a ton. A learning process for me, trying to figure out, learning more about metabolism, calorie counting, learning what foods to eat. I was kind of just slowly researching this over time. My 21st birthday hit. And my 21st birthday is what I consider the start and the whole kicking off of my weight loss journey, because the day of my 21st birthday, I walked into the gym and signed up for a gym membership. And then the next day, because I was way too hungover that day to actually go to the gym, I started going. Now my routine was very basic. I knew from what I had learned previously in high school that I wanted to hit the weight machines just a little. And mostly I wanted to focus on cardio. Now I had been reading about high intensity interval training, HIIT training. And so I went to where the treadmills were and I felt way too embarrassed to get on a treadmill. And so there were elliptical machines in the same area, and they were actually kind of behind the treadmill where you weren't out in front of people. So I got on the elliptical and I just immediately fell in love with it. And I immediately made up this HIIT workout in my head where I did 1 minute easy, 4 minutes hard, and 1 minute easy, 4 minutes hard, just repeating that for 30 minutes. And at the end of that 30 minutes, I was just pouring sweat. I was just killing it. I did this routine for about 5 months and I ended up dropping about 50 pounds pretty quickly. And I wasn't really eating super healthy at this time, but I was going out to eat less. I was eating at home more. And obviously that probably dropped my calories quite a bit. I wasn't calorie counting at this point though. What happened at this point is that I actually started dating an ex-boyfriend. And all that time that I was investing into the gym, I started investing into spending time with him. And so I didn't gain the weight back. I kept pretty much where I was for a year. And then we actually moved in together. And that would be the worst year of my life. It was a huge turning point in my life. I ended up gaining 30 pounds back over that year. And I learned a lot about myself. And I don't regret it. I kind of regret it, but I don't regret it because I learned so much about who I am and the type of person that I want to be with. I was setting real close to 200 pounds at that point. I moved into an apartment by myself and I was like, right, we're going to do this. I had learned some more stuff. I had read somewhere that the lowest amount of calories that you want to eat a day is about 1,200 calories. So I decided it was time to count calories. I was going to eat 1,200 calories, 12 to 1,300 calories every day. And then I was going to go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week. And I was going to continue my high intensity cardio training on the elliptical machine. And I did that for about 3 months. And in about a 3-month time frame, I probably lost 50 pounds. Now, the reason why it was a pretty significant weight drop is that I was so strict. I was unbelievably strict. I mean, I could never repeat what I did then now. My life was very different at that point. I lived by myself. I wasn't dating anybody, and I basically would go to work and then come home, eat dinner, go to the gym, and then spend my night playing computer games. I literally did that every night. I ate the same thing almost every day. I wasn't actually eating super healthy. I would eat like a Nutri-Grain bar in the morning. I would eat a sandwich in the afternoon, and for dinner, I would eat a portion of Hamburger Helper and rice. So really like processed, majorly processed, and not super healthy. I was just strictly focused on calories. And then a lot of times later at night, I'd have 100-calorie like yogurt to tide me over for the morning. I remember going to bed starving every night during this process and being able to just not go into the kitchen and eat. In fact, I was so strict that I would go out on the weekends with my friends, and they would want to go to dinner before going to a bar, and I would eat my dinner at home, and I would literally go to dinner with them, sit at the table, order a glass of water, watch them eat the bread, watch them eat their dinners, and sit there and just have my glass of water. The amount of willpower at that time was insane. But that period got me down to about 140, 145 pounds. So I was getting real close to having lost 100 pounds at that point. I actually ended up meeting my future husband around this point in time. And this kind of struck like the next section of my life because he pretty much started living with me pretty quickly. And he wasn't gonna eat Hamburger Helper and rice and sandwiches for dinner every day. So I quickly had to learn how to adapt. And I was scared to death of gaining weight at this point. Like when you go from 240 pounds to 140 pounds, especially like over just a couple of years, and people like really start to notice you and notice your weight loss, and you start getting a lot of attention, I mean, you become obsessed. And one of the weirdest feelings that I had during this whole experience was I remember looking in the mirror and looking at my face because I'd lost weight so quickly during that shorter time frame. I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror. It was just such a weird feeling. Like I've never felt anything like that before or anything like that again. I was really worried about gaining weight, and I just did not want to gain weight. So I knew I needed to learn how to start cooking healthy meals that we both could eat. I had like a little George Foreman grill, but that really wasn't cutting it. And I knew I could cook a lot of healthy food on a grill. So he actually bought me a gas grill. And that has been like the best thing ever for me. I learned how to just grill meats, and then I literally grill. Like if I cook 5 nights out of the week, probably 4 of those nights I've cooked on the grill. That's still my process today, is to grill, because I ended up being in the gym 6 or 7 days a week now. And I was really becoming a gym rat. And so I had started to branch out, get away from just the elliptical and those built-in weight machines. And I started doing free weights. And then I actually upped my calories a bit. I started eating closer to 15 and 1600 calories a day. And I continued to lose weight. I got down to 130 pounds, and that was my new low. So I was really excited, and it just like shows like I kind of like grew throughout my progress of being at the gym. And then I had a friend introduce me to CrossFit, and this was really before you saw all these CrossFit boxes and these standalone CrossFit gyms. We just did CrossFit in our gym. It was kind of like towards the beginning of the whole CrossFit explosion. But around the same time, a guy that I work with, his dad actually owned the Wooden Wave bike shop. And he had been talking to another guy about going out and riding. And this friend had already given me a heart rate monitor to wear at the gym. And I was already like intrigued on watching my calorie burn through the heart rate monitor. And so I ended up going mountain biking with them. And we literally rode our bikes for 6 miles, and I burned over 1,000 calories. And that just, I was addicted to it because of the calorie burn. I was like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. I burned so much calories. I was like, I could do this every week, and it would be part of my fitness routine. And that's how I started into biking. Like literally the next day, I ordered a Trek 4300 with disc brakes mountain bike. It was my first mountain bike. And I probably the first 2 or 3 years that I biked, I only mountain biked, and I did it 100% for fitness. I was not interested in racing at the time. The problem with CrossFit is that it makes your muscles, you get pretty sore from it. And I found very quickly it was hard to do both at the same time, like on a pretty regular basis. And so I started to get really more intrigued with cycling, and it started to take over. Now I continued to maintain my weight loss for the most part. A couple up and downs where there were a couple times where I remember gaining 20 pounds. So for the most part, I've maintained this 100-pound weight loss. It's been something that you have to focus on every day. I realized a long time ago that my weight loss journey would never end, that this would be part of me for the rest of my life. When you start the process, you think to yourself, like, I just want to lose this weight and then I'll be fine. But that's honestly never the way that it goes. You have to constantly work on it. And part of it is because of my relationship with food. I didn't know this for a long time until I met different people. I don't have a healthy food relationship, and it's because of the way that I think about food. Like if I were to go home and bake a batch of cookies and set them to the side, I can't just go in the other room and forget about those cookies. I will constantly think about them, and I thought that this was just the way that I was and that I was just not a normal person. But I listened to one of Sonya Looney's podcasts a couple of years ago, and it blew my mind because she described the exact same feeling that I had. That's why I do the macro and the calorie counting still to this day, is because it kind of gives me a feeling of security. It keeps me on track, and I actually enjoy doing it. Now I try to eat as many whole foods every meal that I can. I try to cut out as much processed foods, and it's because I just want that better fuel for my body. And in doing this, I'm trying to improve the relationship that I do have with food. Though I still have that weird like sugar gremlin out there who, like if there were cookies over there right now, I would just be like, oh man, cookies. I have that mentality that I'm gonna eat those cookies until those cookies are gone, and then I can stop thinking about them because they're gone. But anyways, that's really my weight loss story, my weight loss journey, how I got to this point. Even though I've gotten to my lowest weigh-in ever this year, I know that I am stronger than I've ever been. The biking and the strength training together, like they've helped me so much. You know, hard work pays off, hard work, dedication. Calories in versus calories out. It's a simple equation. My weight loss is what brought me into cycling. So it's kind of cool to be able to share that story with you guys. I hope this video wasn't too boring of me just sitting here talking about losing weight, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one.